welcome to our conversation about peace from the World Miracle Peace Experiment. I'm MarBeth Dunn, your host, and I'm very excited today to have with you a very dear friend of mine, Maureen Saint-Germain. She's a dear friend. She is known as the Practical Mystic, and she has taught in over 24 countries throughout Europe, Canada, USA, Egypt, China, and Japan. Maureen is known for Akashic Records. She's known for teaching the Flower of Life. She is a prolific author and also has a line of Aroma Mandalas, and she's also a composer. Thank you so much, Maureen, for joining us.
My pleasure. I feel the same way about you, MarBeth. I feel so honored and happy to have you in my inner circle.
It's really wonderful when you have like-minded friends, and you've been just such a jet setter. You've been going back and forth to China, Egypt, and all over the place with your teachings. I know you're so passionate about what you do, and I love what you do because it's really creative. You have your own spin on everything. And I want to talk a little bit about your upcoming book about the Akashic Records.
Cool.
And let's talk a little bit about that. Tell us about that.
Well, this book is literally a coursework. It's a lot of information about how to open the Akashic Records and lots of stories on how to know the energy of the Akashic Records. So a person who likes to learn from a book could learn, but it's also a resource because there's lots of information in there that no other teacher is releasing. So I help people understand the energy of the records by recognizing markers that show you're in the records, just like you have signposts or someone gives you directions to a house, when you go past this store that you're close or something like that. So that's very helpful. And we also, I also teach in a very precise way where we bring in information right away before anybody asks any questions. And that's unique to this particular lineage. And we work directly with the Ascended Masters, calling them in by name every single time we open the records. So the book itself is full of content about experiences in the records and a very precise step-by-step process that we take people through. And then also there's information on how to read and open someone else's records. So, it's like available to the masses. Everyone loves to take a course, but there are people who just can't take a course because they can't travel, because they've got little children or elderly members of the family they are looking after, or maybe they're in a remote area and getting out is harder. So this is a way for people to get that information. And everyone else, they like to have it as a resource because it's a good backup.
So let's talk a little bit about the Akashic Records. Why would we want to access them?
Well, originally the records were created as a supplement to the experiences of humanity. And it was created as a way to have a living field that would hold the energy of the experiences that humans have, or that all reality is having, all the creation is having. And then more recently, in the last probably 20 or so years, maybe more, maybe 30 years, humanity was given permission to access the records. Prior to that, only the shamans or the priests or priestesses were accessing the records. And the curtain was pulled back, and the possibility for anyone to learn to open their own records was made available. And the reason for that is because the humanity is on the edge of a huge transformation. And we're on our way back home to God. But we're not going to be done with creation. We're simply leaving this level and going to the next level. So the transition is almost not noticeable to us, but in effect, we're finding the short way back. And I like to tell a little metaphor. If you go on a picnic and let's say you're taking the kids and the whole family's going, and you finally get the oldest one off the video games and in the car, and then you realize the baby needs a diaper change, and you go through all these machinations. Then you finally go to the deli and you pick up the dinner, and then you get to the park, you get situated, you put the blanket down, and you serve the food and the kids are running around. Everybody's having a really nice time. And then the concert starts and you have a nice time at the concert. And then when it's all over, everybody's kind of sleepy. You pack up and you're out of there in 10 minutes. And then you drive away and you take the shortest route home. You don't make any extra stops. And that's what we're doing. We're on the shortest route home. And one of the ways to do that is to have a map of what's really going on in the reality. And I'll give you an example. There was a woman in one of my classes who connected. One of the things I do is I take people through a process of connecting with your higher self and working with that energy as well. That's a way to get a point of contrast, and also gives you another tool to use in the records, and also gives you the opportunity to understand the difference between the record keepers and your inner guidance. And that's very helpful as well. So she asked her higher self what to do about her adult daughter. The other two children had already left home. She was a widow. Her husband had left everyone substantial trust funds. Everybody was in good shape financially. And the oldest daughter, over 35, was still at home. And she was feeling antsy, in the kitchen. The daughter would rearrange the kitchen the way she liked it, and then the mom would come along and rearrange it the way she liked it. So there was this little dramas, nothing major, but just, uncomfortableness. And she was feeling like she was ready for her daughter to move out, let's go already. And so she asked her higher self, what should I do? And her higher self told her to be more patient with her daughter and to love her, just to love her. In the records, she asked the same question. And in the records, she was told, you have no idea how afraid she is to be on her own. And then the record keepers helped her to feel her daughter's fear. And when she felt her daughter's fear, she suddenly had so much compassion for her daughter. And so when she started to cry, and then the record keepers told her, she will always be there for you. Now, it turns out that her family, all her blood relatives, they got into a big tussle and nobody's talking to anybody, but the daughter is always there for her. And when she heard that her daughter would always be there for her, it never even dawned on her that that would be needed, or that, if she was old and alone, that she would want to have her daughter there to help her and support her. So this changed her dramatically, and she became much more tolerant, much more compassionate, and they became best buddies. They don't necessarily have to do things together, but they're very loving and supportive of one another. The energy dramatically shifted because she got this new information. So being in the records, not only do you get answers to questions, but then you get advice. And that's the thing that's always a surprise. You go in the records, you ask a specific question about something, and then suddenly they're giving you advice about how to handle the big picture, how to handle the situation, and how to embrace it. That is very powerful. So that going into the Akashic Records is about soul growth. And when we expand our consciousness and are more embodying that divine love, that unconditional love, that deep connection, our path back home to God is very fast. Our path back to our divine self is fast. And that's the place we're at. And that's why the records were opened for everyone to open if they want.
That's really fascinating because, I find when I work with people, very often I get information that an experience that they're having is from a previous lifetime. And I don't necessarily see or get that information of what the lifetime is. It seems as if it's particularly relevant. I might get a visual or I might get some information that explains what happened in the past. But most often, I just like, oh, it's a past life, let's just clear it. And I never understood why you needed to learn more about the Akashic Records or tap in with it. Because
well, it sounds to me like you're tapping into the records. And it also sounds to me like you have the same MO that I have. And I actually told the record keepers when I first started that I was not interested in getting past life information for entertainment purposes only.
Exactly, yes.
I'm interested in helping you be a better person, and whatever information that is needed we'll download, and it's available for you, and that's that. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing.
Yes, it sounds exactly, because it was, to me, it was more like, you don't really need to know that you were Cleopatra and a princess.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I totally get that. And I totally agree with you. Yeah. And sometimes it kind of gets in the way if you
Yes.
find out who you really were.
Yeah. But I love this new information that you're sharing about how it can be really beneficial. And I do have another question, which is, how can we use the Akashic records to become more peaceful?
Well, certainly the example I just gave shows you
Yes.
how you can be more peaceful. But when you go into the records, you are being nurtured. There's such a feeling of unconditional love. So the first thing that actually going into the records, the very process of opening up your own records, allows you to feel more loved. And when you feel more loved, you're more peaceful with everyone else. Because when you feel love, you don't need to project your concerns or your fears or your worries. So that's very powerful.
Yes.
So just choosing to go into the records will envelop you with so much love that it will be transformative without ever asking any questions. And then if you're agitated or irritated about something, and I'll use myself as an example, our husbands aren't always perfect or able to understand what their women are up to or thinking or feeling. And, whenever I write something about, well, what about this? I always get told, just love him anyway. Really powerful, because then you can say, okay, fine, I'll stop fussing about that. I'll stop ruminating about that and just let it be okay. Certainly there are situations in everyone's life that you have to draw boundaries and you have to say, okay, enough already. But you don't have to get agitated and you don't have to do it in the heat of the moment. You wait until you're in a peaceful place and then you say, a couple of days ago when we were working out this was a big problem for me and here's why. And I'm not mad at you and you're not in trouble, but I'd like you to know how it makes me feel, blah, blah, blah. What that does is allows you to speak your truth and to stay in your power and also to stay in your sweetness and in your peace.
Yes, which is so important because we do need that. If we are letting ourselves be upset by these little things, and these little things can build and build and build, but to remind ourselves, yes, we can look beyond that and see who that beautiful soul is that loves us so much.
It loves us so much. So true.
Yeah. So that's beautiful with the Akashic records. What other tools would you like to share?
Well, I'd like to share something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that is the Golden Bowl meditation.
Oh, yes.
And this is another tool to assist you in accessing and opening up your higher dimensional skills, your higher dimensional tools. It's very simple, very straightforward, very short. And I worked with this information for a long time. And then one day I came across a biblical quote that referenced the golden bowl. And I knew there was a golden bowl. I had been told there was a golden bowl, but I had no idea. And it's the group of sinus cavities in the front, on the sides, and in the back. And when you, quote, activate the golden bowl, you're literally turning on the sound chambers or the resonance chambers that are the true receptors of the divine energy. And that it's almost like that's the decode ring. So when we do this little meditation and we bring in this energy from the great central sun, we're literally unpacking a data set that's appropriate for us. And what's really amazing is, there's so many things that people tell us about, well, the pineal gland is your gateway to higher experiences. You can open your pineal gland by using illegal substances, or you can do meditation or whatever. But we also know that there's lots of things like fluoridated water and other things that we eat that cause that to calcify. So we're dealing with the physical body that's like covered over or closed down, and then the heart wants to connect with that and work through that process. So what is in this meditation is actually a set of commands that clears all of that debris off of your pineal and then feeds it. So, it's like when you have a plant, when you have a plant, let's say, I'm very fond of poinsettias, but poinsettias do not like their leaves on their dirt. So when you bring home a poinsettia, no matter whether you're a little one or a great big one, you have to keep it clean. So when the leaves start to fall into the pot, you have to pull them out. Otherwise, that plant will die. Well, that's us. So we're cleaning out all the stuff, and then we're watering and taking good care of it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, no, I love the Golden Bowl meditation. As I've shared with you, I was a beta tester, and also I've been using it twice a day with my other meditations, and it really did add a resonance to them and a depth to them, which was very noticeable. So yeah, I really love it, and I love you, and I love all the work that you do. I always find that it comes from such a different perspective. For example, you talk about the great central sun, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a whole different perspective on what could be the great spirit, or could be source or God or the universe. It's like, okay, we have the great central sun, and I love that. So that's very, very cool. So, and then you also have your Aroma Mandalas, which...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Aroma Mandalas are amazing. And they are essential oils that give a person a boost. And the way we use them is we put a few drops on the hand and inhale them 3 times. And this particular group of blends were channeled by Mary Magdalene. They're very unique and very different. Some of them break the rules of blending, and they clear emotional wounds. And what's so important about that is that the feeling of being helpless then is resolved with empowerment, and that's the angel guidance. The feeling of helplessness is the crystal Elohim, and that's for empowerment. So we get all these wonderful, wonderful experiences and energies that help us and move us quickly to the next thing so we can keep moving forward. So the Aroma Mandalas were created to clear out major emotional wounds and then to bring in a powerful replacement energy. And then the last group of them were what I call Ascension Blends, and they don't remove a wound, they simply anchor in certain energies. So, for example, Convergence anchors in the energy of fortitude and helps you touch your own original purpose and amplifies that outward. Pretty cool.
It's very cool. In fact, when you just use that blend right then, I could actually feel the shift. I don't know if our viewers could.
You're supposed to. That's excellent. And I do this with clients all the time when I'm on the phone and they're not with me, and I'll say, okay, you're going to get the benefit. So if you're listening, claim the benefit and you will feel it. And I'm so glad you could feel it. But you and I, I.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about 5D.
Okay.
What is 5D?
Well, 5D is the place that we're all going to. And 5D is the energy that, if you have never heard this term or never understood it, you could say it's like what the traditional churches taught us was heaven. So we're in a place where we're in good communication with our Creator. We have awareness of what's around us. We have the ability to co-create, and we don't have any more bad hair days. And I'm making that to be funny, not to be serious, right? So 5D is this place where love is the ruling, governing force, and that anything that is not filled with love or have love as an element, it doesn't exist. It's like you can't hang on to it. It's not possible. So part of what happens when we slip into 5D, and everyone is slipping into 5D, by the way, occasionally, and you'll know you're in 5D only in hindsight from some of the things that happened. So I wrote a book about all the things that you could want to know about being 5D, and to understand that we're not going into 5D like you get a driver's license. You're going into 5D like when you borrow a car to go somewhere. Each time you have to ask. And I don't mean you're asking to go into 5D. What I mean is it does happen, but it's not an everyday experience. And I'd love for you to tell a story of your emerald ring.
My emerald ring is gone right now. It took another vacation.
My goodness. Remember when you lost it for a while and then it turned back up?
It turned back up because it went into another dimension. And one day I was on my way to India. This ring had been gone. I was doing yoga and I took my rings off. And that's the last I saw of this ring for about a year. And I was going to India. And that day I opened up a drawer, which I hardly ever used. And there it was, just sparkling right on top, like, here I am, I'm back.
So what happens is we put something down, and then when we go looking for it, we've dropped back into 3D, because 3D and 4D are polarity places. 5D has no polarity. So when you're in your blissful place and you're not stressed looking for it, then it's easy to see it. But when you are consciously, proactively looking for it, you're also in the back of your mind thinking, I wonder if it's lost. You know, you might not think that you're thinking it, but you do. So the idea is in 5D, it'll turn right up. Then if you set it down when you're in 5D, in your blissful place, then when you drop back into third dimension, it's not visible to you. So from 5D, you can participate in 3D and have conversations or whatever. Now, here's what happens when you're in 5D and you have a conversation with someone, and they're just, you know, maybe they're just obnoxious. You know, my stepfather had a sharp tongue. He was a really good guy, but he often said things that were really, you know, like, oh, come on, you know, and you want to get him to stop. But he said to me one time, oh, you're just like your mother. And I turned to him and I said, oh, thank you. That's one of the nicest things you've ever said to me. Because in 5D, you only hear the compliment.
Yes, it's beautiful. I love that. Yes.
And so, you know, in hindsight, I thought, oh, that was interesting. I don't think that's what he meant. But it didn't matter, because in that moment, I was receiving the highest form of that statement. So in 5D, when you're 5D and people say things that are mean or snide or whatever, you look at them and you go, oh. And you don't notice that there's a hurtful intent, because you don't feel it. You don't, and even if you do notice there's a hurtful intent, it doesn't bother you. You kind of laugh at it. Like you might, you know, when you put your hand over a little kid who's trying to swing at you, and you put your hand on their head, and then they can't reach you, and you're laughing. So even though they're swinging at you, you're laughing. And that's kind of where we're at. We're at that vibrational data set that is so evolved that you are off there. You can participate, but you're not at that vibrational set. So anything that's incoming, it whizzes by you and it doesn't penetrate you. That's pretty powerful. And I'll give you a couple of other examples. I noticed that there was a time lag from 5D to 3D. So if you're in 5D, you can actually see the reality before the 3Ders do. And the way to examine when that's happening is when you're in traffic and maybe you're the third car back and you're all stopped at the stoplight, and then the light changes and nobody moves. The car in front doesn't move. The people don't start crossing the street, and you think to yourself, oh, I wonder what's going on. But you're in this blissful place, so you're not judging. You're not saying, you know, get going here. I mean, there are times you're stuck in traffic, but that's what you're doing. You know, let's go. But there's other times that you're kind of laid back and in this blissful place. That's 5D. And then you're seeing the traffic light change before everyone else does.
Oh,
so that's another way you can see. That's like a marker. You can see that as a way to know that you're in 5D. Just like when they saw the cat moving backwards, that was a marker that the guys that were chasing them were onto them, and they need to get out of the matrix. If you remember that in the movie.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So there's the book.
Yes.
The book.
I have the book.
Yeah, and the book just won an award, a cover award for self-help and self-growth. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I have some of your other books over here. I have Be a Genie.
Be a Genius. This is a fun book about how to manifest and using sacred geometry. And it's very powerful. You don't have to read the second part, which is all about the geometry basis of it.
I love the geometry. I do.
Yes.
Totally love it. And
You're my girl. And then the Beyond the Flower of Life is a wonderful, wonderful book about, it's really about meditation. So anybody who's doing meditation could use it or would want to use it. And that's very wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we both love the Merkaba meditation.
Yes, indeed.
You've been teaching it for like a multitude of years.
Yeah, I began teaching it in 95. So yeah.
So Maureen, I'm just so delighted that you've joined us today, and I'm really looking forward to your meditation tomorrow. And I was wondering if you'd give our viewers maybe just a last piece of wisdom about how to access more peace.
Well, one of the ways that I always like to tell people at the end of a call is ask for a day of heaven on earth. And the way I ask is I ask for a day of heaven on earth for myself and everyone I come in contact with. Now, I figured out that you could also ask for a week of heaven on earth. So when you know you're going to an event, or you're going to something special, you know, something like you're going to travel and go attend a workshop, or you're going to go attend a vacation, or whatever it is, you can ask for a week of heaven on earth. And here's what happens. When we create in the reality, when we put money into something, we're actually creating our own energy field. And when we ask for an overlay of a week of heaven on earth on top of that event, whether it's a cruise or whatever, what we're doing is we're putting a sterling energy on top of it, and then we will attract then the optimal opportunities for a true week of heaven on earth. So this is another little extra piece that I figured out after many years of just calling it a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I come in contact with.
Why limit it?
Well, that's exactly what happened to me the first time and second time and the third time I asked for it. I thought, I'm not asking for it just when I'm busy and overloaded. I'm going to ask for this every day.
And why not? That's a beautiful thing, Maureen. Thank you so much for joining us on our conversation about peace. And I'm really looking forward to your meditation. And if you haven't yet joined the World Miracle Peace Experiment, it's only 7 minutes a day for a meditation for world peace. So thank you all so much.